Hello, Youngstown. This is your Superintendent Jeremy Batchelor, and we're back with another episode of Belly Left Leadership. Remember, Belly Left is a leadership mantra, what we kind of run our things on. It's defined off a simple yet complex yet powerful athletic play, football play, where you have to understand your assignment. You are doing your assignment, executing your assignment at a high level, working together as a team, based off of things we did back in the day where everybody did their part. And you run it so well and repetitively that you run it so where they can't stop it. So that's our phrase. We run it till we stop it. So remember that leadership mantra that we have here in Youngstown and Youngstown City Schools and the city of Youngstown. And we're here talking with people in the district, people that are leaders, that are connected to our district, and folks that work with our district. And so today, I have a very special guest, a person that I consider a friend, person that is also a mentor, Dr. Baron Davis, former superintendent. But I'm going to let him tell you all about himself. But I'm glad to have Dr. Davis here with us from South Carolina. He is the founder of the Noegenesis group. But I'm going to let you give your background. So tell us who you are, say hello to the folks of Youngstown, and about your journey in education.
I appreciate that.
You are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I'm special. Thanks for having me on. And hello to the folks from Youngstown, all the way from Columbia, South Carolina. As stated previously, former superintendent of Richland School District 2 in Columbia, South Carolina. Richland 2 is about 28,000 students. And I'm also a kid from Columbia, so grew right up in Columbia. So I understand kind of like what your leadership journey is like, Mr. Batchelor, being a superintendent in a community, in a school district, an area in which you grew up in. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to share right now. I'm serving as I had the fortunate to start a think tank strategy firm, the Noegenesis group, where we really helped organizations and individuals work to solve challenges and complex problems. We're thought partners, a strategy partner. We bring individuals together to collectively work on solutions to some of the most challenging issues. I also have the privilege and pleasure of serving as a senior advisor at Digital Promise, which is a global nonprofit primarily working in the Center for Inclusive Innovation and spearheading a new initiative in the Center for Inclusive Innovation called the Collaborative Innovation Studio. Okay. And in that studio, the whole idea is to really help organizations like school districts and nonprofits come together to co-create to solve some of their greatest challenges, some of their most complex challenges, co-design and co-lead the solutions to those challenges. And that has been some phenomenal work that we've been doing, seeing some tremendous success in the studio, and then an opportunity to help center student voice, teacher voice, community voice, really at the center of the table when it comes to developing solutions to challenges.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So you're doing a lot, Doc.
I try to.
You're doing a lot.
I try to.
And that's why I'm pleased and honored and glad that we're connected, because I learned a lot from you. I followed you on social media. I follow the work that you're doing, and then obviously do some work here with us to try to keep me as your leader. I tell my folks all the time, I'm not going to ask our staff to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And I've been doing this for a while as a instructional leader, superintendent for about 2 years, but we all need support and help. And Doc has been a listening ear for me, draw on his experience and help us with solutions. So I'm thankful for that. So, and you mentioned this, you talk, education today, a little different right now.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do you approach helping organizations navigate the changes in this fast-paced educational environment?
That's been a question that has come up quite a bit. And I think one of the first thing is to do is when things are really, really speeding up, just like you talked about with Belly Left Leadership. And I remember telling you when you shared that with me a couple years ago about this, and I thought it was an outstanding kind of mantra to use to really describe the way you all wanted to run things. And I think you have to slow the game down some.
Okay.
Everybody is at a breakneck pace. It doesn't mean that you don't keep pace, but you have to slow the game down a little bit. And what I mean by that is you slowing it down in your mind and in your response to everything. You can't have a knee-jerk and herky-jerky response to every single thing that's happening. Slow down a little bit, process things a little deeper, try to analyze things a little better. Try to bring in people who may be experts in areas that you have some deficiencies in to get some insight. But slow the game down and process the game. You have the skills and the tools and the ability to do the work and to do the job and to make the necessary adjustments on the fly. But you can't do those things if you are if you're having a herky-jerky response to every single thing and you don't have an opportunity to kind of process and slow the game down. So how would I go about doing that? I think the first thing is really concentrate and focusing on the mission and the vision of the organization in which you're leading. Right. Make sure that you can still fulfill the promise that you've made to your community that's written in that mission and that vision statement, right? And then Simon Sinek, I think I shared a book with you a year or so ago about the infinite game. Absolutely. Talks about having a just cause. Yes. Recenter the organization, recenter the community, recenter the partners and the stakeholders around a just cause. What is it that we want to achieve? What's this euphoric version of this world, of this educational experience we want to provide for our students? Now, how do we work together to make that happen? There are going to be challenges to it because there are going to be funding issues. There are going to be policies that are being passed that are going to maybe challenge some of those things. But if you can get everybody centered on those things, I think it'll be you'll find it a little easier. And lastly, JB, I'll say really examine your values. I think it's now time to really stop talking about beliefs, what I believe, and let's start talking about what we truly value. I think that'll help because beliefs shift and change with new information, new situations. I may believe something this year, and next year I no longer believe that to be true. But when I hold something dear as a value, that's really core to me. And it's really hard to shift off of a value. So we have 4 common core values that we believe in. Then that's something that I think that anybody can stand on when it comes to trying to provide and working to provide that educational experience that you want to provide here in Youngstown for your students.
So we're going to circle back to that Simon Sinek book in a minute. But my next question, like you read my mind, was really centered on core principles and values and those types of things. Talk to me more about values and how you as a leader have your values.
Mm-hmm.
How do we kind of get the organization to kind of come to some understanding of core values that we all can agree to that help our organization grow?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that even I experienced as superintendent in my tenure of about 7.5 years was not focusing enough on making sure that the values of the organization, the school district, the community and the board and even administration were aligned. Mm-hmm. So we can all have a list of things that we hold dear and think we believe are values, but we have to find those common values and align those values to the purpose of the work that we're attempting to do. So it takes constant communication, right? It takes constant discussions. It takes demonstration of what those values are, making sure that they are defined in a way as well. We can say what we value. We want to make sure that when we define the value, there's a common definition of the value so we can see the value in play in that work. And so when I say I value accountability, or someone said that they value account, what does that look like? Right. And so now all of us can be held to that definition and standard of value, of the value of accountability. And we find a list of those core things. And I personally wouldn't make the list exhaustive, because there are going to be too many nuances. But when it comes to the work that we're attempting to do for the benefits of our students, then that should be very clear. I'm hoping that in any organization that is educationally focused, that we all value our students. Right. And not that it's one of those situations where we say things like, I believe all students can achieve. Like that's a belief. And those beliefs and assumptions sometimes can be, but I value providing every student with an exceptional educational experience or something like so. Having it as a value that really centers you in the work that you're about to take on because it's gonna get tough.
Yeah. That's pretty powerful. That whole difference between belief and value, especially that example that you gave about our students being able to achieve value in it, something that you just won't let go of.
That's right.
And, you believe in it, say you believe in it, but sometimes your actions might not align to that. But value it, and your actions will align to it. So that's powerful. Hope y'all listening, and I'm listening for sure. Let's circle back. You mentioned Simon Sinek, and you mentioned that book, The Infinite Game. You know me, I'm a sponge, and so I absolutely bought the book. I absolutely read the book, and my principals out there, my leadership team, it's coming. They actually are sitting.
Don't hold me accountable for that, though.
Hold him accountable for sure. But they're actually sitting on my shelf in my office. To be honest with you, we did a beginning of the year book study.
Yeah.
Another book you gave us was Outlearning the Wolves.
Outlearning. Oh man.
Did that. We started the year with that. We really spent some time during our leadership team meetings working on that, which was powerful. And then we took a little hiatus. Folks know that I've been out a little bit. Took a little hiatus, but we have the book ready to go. Either it's going to be late spring or summer, or we might wait until next fall when we do some other coaching things with our principals. But bottom line is my senior leadership, they've already got their copies.
Yeah.
They've been tasked to making sure they're reading. It's funny. They send me messages all the time like, man, this is off the chain. I can't believe you been holding this from. I'm like, I've been holding it. I gave it to you early so you can learn just like I'm learning. But it definitely is a powerful text that I'm excited to dig into.
Oh man, yeah. I had to give a shout out to I don't know if Dr. Epps would even see this, but to Ronald Epps back in Columbia. He's a former superintendent in Columbia as well. And Dr. Epps is an outstanding mentor. As a group of men that I sit with every quarter for breakfast. But Dr. Epps shared that book with me years ago.
Okay.
Outlearning Wolves, and so it's still making its rounds through educational leadership. But it's a very simple book,
absolutely,
right? And really centers, I think, educational leaders in general around what's possible. But you gotta keep reinventing the thing, man. So it's great. Man. Yeah, good deal.
I love when you sent it to me. I was like, it's a kid's book.
It looks like it, yeah.
Then I started reading it a couple times. I'm like, oh, this is powerful.
No doubt.
Principals and leadership, they had the same reaction. Thank you for that. All right, so talk to me. You mentioned a couple of times, I think, like constant communication, which ties into collaboration and those types of pieces. As a former superintendent, and even the role that you have now, and working with superintendents and other educational leaders. Talk to us about collaboration and what it means in today's world, especially.
I think the importance of collaboration is there are a couple components to it. I think that you have to really truly work hard to adhere to. And I think the first thing is definitely having great and strong communication, and right, understanding what that is. And so communication is two-way. Right. It's a situation where you're not just sharing information. You got to share information, and then you also have to receive information. And then, so I think good collaboration starts with really good communication. I think good collaboration starts with also making sure that there's some sort of feedback process, a feedback loop that's in place, right? So when you do something and you work on something together, that you have a system that you're constantly getting feedback on that process from the individuals that are part of it. I think people have to feel seen and heard in collaboration. And one of the great things about the work that we do at Digital Promise, and in particular in the Center for Inclusive Innovation and the Collaborative Innovation Studio, is around like student voice and student agency, and making sure that stuff is just not tokenism. Like you're not just bringing your students to the table to talk about an issue just to say, check in the box to say, hey, I met with my student advisory. Oh, I met with my parent advisory. This is actually a collaborative process that you have students who are engaged in the process of developing the solution to the challenge that they are facing as students. And that's real collaboration. So that collaboration is like that co-design and co-leadership toward the solution. You are working together with someone. It's not just, I love that, the idea of that definition. And I simply tell you why. And it's a very selfish reason for me as a former superintendent. If I was currently in the chair practicing it, it actually takes some of that solo responsibility off of you to solve every single problem, right? And you give others agency toward the problem. And I always share that, there is never going to be a sense of urgency to solve a problem until there's first a sense of agency. I got to own the problem before I really want to solve the problem. And if people are constantly solving problems for you, you never own the problem. And that often is what happens with our students, even with our teachers and faculties and staffs, even with our communities, educational leaders or governmental leaders, nonprofit leaders. We own the problem. We try to solve the problem because we're owning it, but it's our problem. So let's use the whole idea of bringing folk together to collaborate to solve the problem. That's going to help make it sustainable. That's what's going to help it make it sustainable.
Man, I love talking to you, man. I'm hoping that my folks here in Youngstown are listening and are reflecting a little bit, because that is absolutely what we believe and what I believe. So since I've been superintendent for a year and a half, coming up on 2 years, we've established Student Advisory Council, established a parent and community advisory council, staff advisory council. And this year, we've engaged with Patel for Kids on the portrait of a graduate. We've developed, and we're in the process of that right now. And the most important piece to that portrait is getting that input and that understanding of what our community, and most importantly, what our kids, who are going to be products of our system, want their education to look like. And for them to have voice, listen, we don't hide from anything in Youngstown. I tell people all the time whenever I speak, and people get mad at me sometimes, they're like, let's focus on the positive. You can't focus on improving or in really enhancing your organization unless you own, like you said, own what we have. And so I've owned it, but now I gotta bring our whole entire community along with us. Okay, it's not about what Jeremy wants. It's about what our community needs. And so those folks that are a part of those advisories and some others are at the table developing that portrait of a graduate with us, so they can develop that sense of agency and then help us develop that sense of urgency as we move out of academic distress and we move into other things, that we become the best Youngstown City Schools we can be. Not for me, but for the kids that are in our schools right now, those who are in the nurseries right now that are going to be coming in for the next 12 to 15 years, and what it makes our community better. So I tell the mayor all the time, I want Youngstown City Schools to be better so his city can be better, or our city can be better, and vice versa. So if the city becomes better and we reduce crime and we get better employment rates in our school and the opportunities we can create for our young people and the skills that they need to be productive citizens of this community, that's what we want. We want them to stay here if they desire and they have an opportunity to be great young people right here in Youngstown, Ohio. So a lot of things that you and I have been talking about, but definitely having that student voice is paramount to me. At our portrait design team meetings, our students are at the table, and we've set the parameters that their voice probably matters more than anybody else at the table.
I agree 100%.
So when it comes to me, they ask me all the time. I tell them if the kids are not feeling it, I'm not feeling it.
Well, I think it's important too, as we develop this next generation of learners and next generation of leaders, that they have the skill set and they have the wherewithal and they have even the methodology and approach to make sure that their voices are heard. But more importantly, that they also have learned how to include others' voices.
Absolutely.
So if we demonstrate that through that process, right? So through the process of inclusive innovation, we show them how to do that when we are trying to innovate and trying to solve our greatest challenge. We have them at the center of that. One day, those will be the future superintendents, the future CEOs, the future nonprofit leaders, the future police chiefs of the world, the future mayors. They've gone through an educational experience where they know that, hey, when I need to solve some of my most challenging problems, I don't need to try to solve this problem all on my own. Right. I need to include those who are closest to the challenge and collaborate with them through code researching, and co-designing and developing, and then more importantly, co-leading toward that solution. That's going to be true collaboration. And that's where it's going to be sustainable. It's going to be powerful. People are going to feel heard and seen and valued. And then they're going to want to make sure that that solution is successful. Because if I just give it to you and I tell you this is the way it should be, and this is what I decided and my leadership team decided, and you don't accept that, then it's going to be really hard for you to, I think, to hold to those things when real challenging times come. Yeah.
All right. Let's listen. We both podcast is about a lot of things, but definitely centered around leadership.
Mhm.
I personally believe that leadership, we all are leaders in some right. And leadership is paramount in organizational, driving organizational improvement, change, and just organizational health. So what does leadership mean to you? How do you define leadership?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and one that you would think that any individual who has been in a leadership role would have a clear-cut definition for what leadership is when they want to define it. But I see it very in terms of it being somewhat simplistic and somewhat complicated at the same time, right? But leadership is really about being able to guide people and lead people toward a common place of achievement, attainment, but at the same time, people also see their roles and their values in doing it. But how I look at leadership, I think one, it takes a person to have a vision. So we talked about vision as it's not a leader, particularly in education, but I would think in any organization that has to share and discuss their vision with those in which they lead. People have to see where it is you're trying to go. You have to explain it to them. You have to show it to them. They have to be able to visualize it. You need to be able to visualize it as well. What is the vision for your organization? So if the vision is to be the premier education and to provide a premier educational experience for all of your students so that they go out into the world and they are high productive, high functioning adults who continue to contribute to the world. It goes back to that idea of what I said when we talked about Cynic, about having a very euphoric vision, right? A just cause for where you want to go, where you want to lead the organization. I think it takes influence. Leaders got to have influence. You got to be able to influence people in the right way, positively, not negatively. But you have to be able to get people to see things, to get them to trust you. Because I don't think you can have true influence without levels of trust. I think that is imperative. I think it's definitely leaders are responsible individuals. You got to own it. Mm-hmm. Good, bad, or indifferent, right or wrong. 100%. You got to own the responsibility. You have the responsibility of shepherding the organization to that destination in which you're trying to take it, right? And so that means you have to, as a shepherd leader, as I like to see myself as, sometimes you got to lead from the front, from the back, from both sides, and in the middle. You got to move around. You can't always be at the front trying to lead. You got to be at the back sometimes, making sure that other people are responsible for those who may be falling behind. You're responsible for protecting the organization. That's why you're on the sides. You're in the middle. You're getting the information you need. And then in the beginning, if you're in the head, you're leading through that difficult and tough terrains that may be coming. And I think that's critically important. You got to have the ability to be adaptive. You got to be able to have the ability to be adapted. Things are not going to go the way that you want them to go every single time. So your ability to adapt and adjust in real time as a leader is paramount as well. So when the terrain shifts, you have to make the right decisions to be able to take a different path, to forge new paths, to maybe slow down, to speed up. But you got to have the ability to be adaptive in that in your leadership style. And so I think it definitely takes vision, it takes influence, it takes a level of responsibility, and I think it takes some adaptation as well.
I love that piece you said. It's like making sure the folks that don't fall behind, kind of like protecting the organization, and it just made me think a little bit about something we kind of adopted this year that we created. Our new rallying cry. We're here to defend the why. All right. And people say, well, what does that mean? And I just kind of took this opportunity to kind of talking to our community a little bit. We are defending the why and defending Youngstown. Now, does that mean that we're, putting up a wall or whatever? No, we're talking about defending us from internal and external threats, but also standing up for the fact that our kids are great. Also making good business practices so that when we have, we're fiscally sound to do the things that we need to do for our children. Making sure that, quite honestly, the media sometimes like to paint urban school districts a certain way. So we're going to be rigorous in our defense. Again, own whatever we have that we make mistakes on. We're going to be rigorous in our defense of our great kids, our great staff, the things that we do as an urban education place where there's sometimes the cards are stacked against us, but we're not going to fold, and we're not going to make excuses, but we are going to defend the why. So I think people see that logo out there and they're like, what is he talking about? But that's what it's about, defending the organization. And sometimes that is putting some other folks out in front of certain things. Sometimes that is, like I said, getting in the back and understanding, why are folks not coming along with the new procedures that we have going on? Right now, we got our folks downstairs. We're looking at a new ELA curriculum because we have to, quite honestly, because the governor's laws and things require us to utilize the science of reading. We're well along that, but we have to adopt some new curriculum. But one of the things we need our community and our staff to be a part of that. We've had a committee, but the last part of that textbook adoption is for the community to review it. So downstairs right now, folks are reviewing. They have the opportunity until 6:00 tonight to come in and review those materials. So again, defending the why. We got to do what we got to do, but we need everybody to be at the table to help us do that.
Absolutely.
No doubt, we're getting close to the end. But you've been, like I said, a good friend of Youngstown from from behind the scenes. Been a leader across the country in terms of educational leadership. What last words of wisdom do you want to leave with the folks of Youngstown and with our team? Or folks across the country? This podcast is gaining traction.
It is. It is. I've been watching it in South Carolina, so it's definitely gaining traction. Wow, what thing would I leave with the folks from Youngstown or anyone that's viewing this? I think that understanding the importance of supporting your public education organizations or institutions, school districts, and why that is imperative for us to provide the necessary support and resources. I always used to, when I was a young principal, people would, and I led a very urban middle school in a district in our city in Columbia, and people would always talk about parent engagement, and I always talked about parent support. Because here's what I know. Support is always positive. Engagement is not. You can be engaged and be a negative and a nuisance and a person who stands in the way, but you're thoroughly engaged.
My team
and I want people to say I am a supporter of what we're doing. And I think support lowers people's defenses. It actually gives the notion that you're here to help. I'm not here to hurt. And so be a supporter of public education. Be a supporter of your school leaders. Be a supporter of your students, teachers. Teachers, be a supporter of your students and their families. Administrators, be a supporter of your teachers and your community leaders. We all have to understand the importance of supporting one another in the work that we're attempting to do for the benefit for our kids. And the last thing I would say to that is, in addition to that, and maybe a little different, is to about a sense of efficacy and a sense of self-efficacy. For those individuals who are out there that are considering public education as a profession, because we need more public educators. We need more educators in general, more leaders. But we want you to come in with a high level of efficacy, and we want leaders to build levels of efficacy and efficacy capacity for those, like the belief in yourself. And we want to build that in our kids too, and our students too. We want you to be able to believe that you can accomplish the things that anything that you want to accomplish with the right work ethic and the right type of resources and things in place. So, I always say high expectations require high support. So if you have high expectations for people, then you need to follow with a high level of support, right? That's extremely important. So if you got A plus expectations, then provide A plus support for those individuals.
Y'all heard it. Youngstown, those who follow Youngstown, those who love Youngstown across the country. This podcast about what we do here in Youngstown from a belly left standpoint. Heard it from friend Dr. Baron Davis. Heard about high levels of support. We encourage you in this trying time in education that we still believe in public education, that we need folks to get on the line, know your assignment, practice it repetitively, execute it at a high level. We can continue to run belly left. We're going to run it until they stop it. Take care until next time, Youngstown. Superintendent Jeremy Batchelor. This is Baron Davis, Dr. Baron Davis. We thank you, and we will see you next time.